Welcome, everybody, to the Colorado Rapids Podcast 2025 edition. I'm your host, Mike Ravolo, joined alongside my good friend and the Rapids legend, mi querido viejo, Drew Moore. And, of course, we're back, baby. We're back for 2025 for the second season, for the second year of the Colorado Rapids Podcast. And, of course, this podcast is now brought to you by Dick's Sporting Goods. Thanks to our friends there. And, this is a big year for the Colorado Rapids because we, as being one of the original clubs in MLS, which it started in 1996, this is, as it's the 30th year for the league, it is also the 30th year for us, the Colorado Rapids. So this is a very big year where I think we have some big things coming for you guys to tune in, to celebrate the history of this club. Someone who has lived it and been a part of it and helped create some of that history for us. So we have a lot in store for that on that front. And, of course, in this episode of the Colorado Rapids Podcast, along with Drew, we're going to be previewing what is going to be a busy but exciting 2025 season. So give you guys a lay of the land of what we got coming up for this 2025 season. Drewby, my goodness, it's good to be back, huh?
30 years of the Rapids.
That's crazy to think.
Starting to get some silvers, maybe?
I know you are. Maybe I'll probably get there at some point.
Not us. I was talking about the club as a whole. Clearly, I've got some silvers, but the Rapids are catching us in age now, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Be careful. No, but such an exciting time of the year, obviously. It's the middle of winter, of course, which I'm not a big winter guy.
Yeah, you picked the wrong place for it, man.
I did. But it's cold everywhere, I feel like, around the country right now.
Oh, yeah. A lot of snow everywhere.
A lot of snow. But MLS is right around the corner.
MLS is right. Just this week, Drew. Mm-hmm. This week we get started with the new 2025 MLS season. Of course, we'll be in action at St. Louis, and we'll touch base and kind of get into that a little bit. But, of course, 2025 is officially here. So a little housekeeping, guys, just to give you guys a lay of the land of what the Colorado Rapids podcast is going to look like for this 2025 season. So a few change-ups here and there. So we're going to still have the two segments that are the rundown, which we're doing right now with between Drew and I. And we'll also have the conversation that our good friend Jordan Angeli will still be hosting and having interview guests to be able to talk to them, get to know them so that you guys can also get to know them as well. It'll be just like last year. So the way that's going to work out is this time around, Drew and I here are every week we are going to be doing the rundown, looking at the weekend that was, looking ahead to the week that is coming up. Mm-hmm. And then just covering some MLS news. And in the middle of all of that, we're going to be going off the pitch, if you will, with either a Rapids player or a member of the coaching staff or any Rapids staff, just to get a little look back on what the weekend was and then looking ahead to the week that is coming up as well. So that's what we have in terms of the rundown. And as I mentioned earlier with our good friend Jordan Angeli, she'll be hosting the conversation every other week with a guest, like I said, just to get to know them. And you get just like we did last year with a really, really good list of guests that we had last year. And we plan to kind of run it back a little bit this upcoming year, this season with our good friend Jordan. And, of course, congrats to Jordan, right, with the Denver NWSL bid being official, NWSL coming to Denver. So congrats to Jordan on that front as well.
I don't know how Jordan does it, man. She is incredible. Of course, they had to separate us because the content was just too powerful, too strong with Jordan and I together. But Mike, you and I we'll be okay, I think, right?
We'll manage.
For the rundown, we'll manage. But no, Jordan, congratulations.
Yeah, seriously.
I'll miss you to the right of me here, but obviously having you still do the conversation, which, like in all things, you're incredible at.
Oh, yeah.
But happy for her as well.
No, of course, yeah. For our good friend Jordan, very happy and congrats on everything, Jordan, of course. We'll still see you around. We're still going to have her around, so do not worry, Rapids fans. Jordan Angeli is still going to be around the club. So I think that covers it. Outside of, I will mention, everything podcast related is on YouTube now. Last year, everything was on MLS Season Pass, but this year, everything is on YouTube between the conversation and the rundown. So you can catch everything there and wherever you get your podcast as well. On the audio portion, of course, the video portion you get here with Drew and I and Jordan on the conversation on YouTube. So I think that covers it, Drew, right?
Yeah, and watch it on video. You got two good-looking guys here,
One good-looking guy right here.
Get out of here. You don't just want to hear us. You got to see us, too.
All righty. In terms of stats and results, just a little bit of perspective there. 15, 14, and 5 for the Colorado Rapids last season. 7th in the West, which meant they qualified for the playoffs. And earned 50 points, 61 goals in favor. Scored a lot of goals last year, 60 against. So that provides you a frame of reference of what this style of play like is under Chris, where you're gonna receive goals, but you're definitely gonna score goals. And then with the roster building, that was a very busy 2023 offseason where we went from a team that finished last in the Western Conference to making the progress that they did into 2024. The big piece, of course, was Chris Armas, right? Signing Chris Armas as the head coach of the Colorado Rapids, and then from there making some signings, other dominoes that fell into place as a result of that. So Omir Fernandez, who was a free agent, who was at the Red Bulls for a number of years and had known Chris from then. Yep. And then you look at Djordje Mihailovic, Zach Steffen, Sam Vines comes back home to his hometown club. A lot went into 2024. A lot of prep went into 2024, and it kind of set us up for a lot of the success that we're going to get into a little bit, just to provide context for the fans.
A lot went into it, and there were a lot of unknowns. Anytime you replace your head coach, what's it going to look like? And we knew where Chris Armas had been in the past in the Red Bull system, head coaching for them, leading them to a supporter shield. Went to Toronto where things didn't work out great, but he still brought his principles, his verticality, the high energy, front foot mentality, and we knew that's what he was going to bring here to Colorado, but we didn't know what it was going to look like, right? And then you talk about the signings that brought in that, man, like pretty much a home run if you look at them as a whole, right? Djordje Mihailovic, Zach Steffen, Omir Fernandez, Sam Vines, those were some great signings, all had huge impacts here in 2024. But I think the biggest thing was the buy-in factor from all the players, right? We knew what they could all offer individually for the most part, but the fact that they all bought in to Chris Armas's principles and mentality and just kind of the way he is. We had him on the podcast a couple times. You see the way in interviews his brain works, which I don't understand how it does, but the energy that he brings and puts into it is exactly what he takes out onto the training pitch and on the sidelines during match day, and every single player bought into it, including these new players, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of.
A lot of fun to be a part of. And as we're going to mention here with some of these moments, it was, Rocky Mountain Cup. Ooh. That was a really, really big one amongst the very many big moments that we had in 2024 as a club. Drew, Rocky Mountain Cup, that was kind of a back and forth affair with getting the first result at RSL with Cole Bassett getting the game winner there. The second match, which was a 5-3 defeat, although, the Rapids were on the wrong side of that, a lot of people considered that almost like an MLS classic with how bonkers and crazy and entertaining that match was altogether. Yeah. So great for the neutral, obviously not great for the Rapids, but then the Rapids turned it around when the final leg of Rocky Mountain Cup came here to Dick's Sporting Goods Park. And, of course, a storybook ending, honestly. Colorado, homegrown, and Cole Bassett takes that PK at the very, very end of the match, scores it, and helps the Colorado Rapids earn their first Rocky Mountain Cup since 2020.
Which was an exciting Rocky Mountain Cup.
Which was another wild one as well, right? But I think it was a very fun and intense and wild and entertaining Rocky Mountain Cup series that I'd ever seen since I'd been at the club since 2021. I mean, Drew, for you, I think this means a little bit more to you having been around here as long as you have, and knowing what it means to the players, to the club, to people associated with the fans, everybody, right?
I think it could have. I'm not sure necessarily if it did, but put this derby, this series back on the map in MLS in a sense, and. There's so many teams in the league now, and there's so many rivalries, whether you believe they're rivalries or not. But this is one of kind of the original big rivalries once Salt Lake came in because of, the geographical locations, right? We are the only two teams in the Mountain Time Zone. There were a lot of players that switched back and forth between clubs in the early days. I'm not sure if the newer fan is aware of that, but. The series in 2024 was incredible. Just so much drama and excitement in all three matches, which is exactly what you want in the Rocky Mountain Cup, and for the Rapids to win it. And Chris Armas said when he got here, man, like the fans let me know right away how important it is. And I remember I experienced the same kind of feelings in 2009 when I originally got here to the Rapids. And we saw the passion that he celebrated with the cup afterwards, and that third leg had a weather delay, right, where the Rapids score first and then concede a couple times and are behind all of a sudden, and then tie it up right before half, and then the weather delay and a lot of the fans still saying it was like a monsoon, it was like the biggest rainstorm of the summer, There was a lot of excitement in the Rocky Mountain Cup, but the Rapids won it fair and square, going away twice, which is always difficult and not easy. But you win the first leg of it, you set yourself up for legs 2 and 3, and it's back where it belongs, as you said, Mike.
Absolutely, back where it belongs.
Mm-hmm.
So back where it belongs, and I mean, to think it couldn't get any better, because Leagues Cup, man, Leagues Cup was like. Rocky Mountain Cup was crazy. I think Leagues Cup was even crazier, with kind of the things that this club accomplished in that run that they had in Leagues Cup in 2024 and how they did it as well. Some of those moments, I just think, to the last-minute goal for Hafa against Leon here, I mean, at the death, scoring that to take us into PKs and eventually let us have the run that we do, right? You look at Yappy scoring in the last minute off a kind of a bit of a gaff, with DeLuca in the back line, a scuffle there, but he's just at the right place at the right time, right? But that's the thing, right? It's just, I think this is Rapid side that took advantage of their opportunities and their moments to have a Leagues Cup run that they did, which, they eventually finished third place, which means that we were able to qualify for the 2025 CONCACAF Champions Cup.
This close to being eliminated in that Leon game,
yeah,
right? This
yeah.
close.
Yeah.
And then Keegan Rosenberry, the captain, nods a header across to Hafa, making the extra pass, upgrading the shot, which if you go out to one of our training sessions, you will hear Chris Armas say no less than 10 times, right? To tie the game up, send it to penalties, where Zach Steffen then showed why he's here, what he's capable of, and really took over the rest of that Leagues Cup run for the Rapids.
Yeah.
But so much excitement in every single match to beat 4 Liga MX teams in less than a 2-week time span. Mm-hmm. Which no MLS team has done.
Yeah, 4 Liga MX teams
consecutively as well. Yeah, and the Club America game in Los Angeles, where you might as well have been in Azteca with the atmosphere, with the yellow in the stands, and you saw the way that not just the team celebrated that shootout win, but the entire staff that was there. Right, I think we had people coming down from the press box to celebrate in the penalty area after that. But what a great run, and to go to Philadelphia and show a lot of character and grit, because it was hot. It was the end of a long run, because logistically Leagues Cup is not easy either. You're playing so many games on top of each other, traveling a little bit, right? It was an impressive Leagues Cup run, and really was one of the top highlights of the Rapids 24 season.
If I had a drink in hand, I'd say cheers to hopefully 2025 kind of being a similar thing.
Absolutely.
But this Rapid side, with what they've accomplished last year, again, as we mentioned, Chris Armas, his first year being the head coach of the Rapids, and accomplishing what he did with this group in his first year, gives you so much hope and optimism for what is going to be the 2025 season, right? And then, again, keeping it in 2024 very quickly, but with on the player front, particularly with Moise Bonvito, the master of the basics, as Chris Armas would call him, right? He was transferred to OGC Nice in Ligue 1 in France. It was the most expensive. It was a club record fee, and also it was a league record as well in terms of an outbound transfer for a defender to a league outside MLS. And that, I think we can acknowledge that it did leave a little bit of a void in the back line because of the presence that Moise had, with not just his personality, which would show with his play, right? But it was with his speed that we saw, that one sprint that we had against Miami, right? That he had, just sprinting back from the Miami box all the way back to our own box when trying to make a recovery run. Moments like that, and then just, again, master the basics, where Chris would just hammer that home with him in terms of improving his play, which eventually led to this transfer to OGC Nice, right? So that I think that was a big hole that we had in the back a little bit when Moise, albeit, to different pastures and explore a wonderful opportunity in Liga and Europe. It did put us in a little bit of spot, I think, in that latter half of the season once he left.
It did, and you don't replace Moise, right? Like, Moise is a rare breed, and you can see that because he's gone on to Ligue 1 and made a big impact for OGC Nice, and love to see his progress and continue to keep an eye on him, because he was a massive part of our back line, certainly. But it's one of the reasons why the offseason becomes so important, and why you do want to be a deep squad as well. I thought Lalas Abubakar stepped in and had a very good second half of the season when he was playing regularly. But we did miss Moise, absolutely. And I know we did it on a couple episodes of the podcast, but wish him all the best and know that he's thriving and doing well in France right now.
Yeah, it's at least nice to see that. It's nice to see one of our own in a sense, if, just being able to kind of go out, do something different, explore a different opportunity. and make something of it as well. So, of course, we always miss him. We always miss Moise here, but it's just nice to see him do his thing out there in Europe.
Absolutely.
And then just in terms of, that along with kind of what the rest of the season looked like, just very quickly, just touching base on it with Sam Vines getting hurt, that did affect the little team in terms of his verticality, what he offers offensively, like in the latter half of the season, him not really being available. And which also kind of went in line with the Galaxy, who were the eventual MLS Cup champs that we faced in the playoff series. Of course, the players, just very quickly, that the players and the coaching staff, they'd be the first to tell you that they were disappointed with how that went. And of course, again, looking ahead to 2025 in hopes that they can turn their fortunes and maybe make something else of another playoff run, hopefully in 2025. So, in terms of other player transactions, so I mentioned Moise, right? But there's quite a few that we need to touch base on for 2025, going into 2025. So in terms of a couple guys that are no longer with the club, Jonathan Lewis, who had 144 regular season appearances for the Rapids. And as you mentioned earlier, Drew, with our friend Lelis Abubakar, who is actually staying in the league. He is now with FC Dallas. He had 139 regular season appearances for the Colorado Rapids. And, of course, we'll be facing FC Dallas in our home opener next Saturday. So we will see our friend Lalas there back at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. I know he was a fan favorite, but certainly happy for Lalas to find a different spot and still stay in the league. And, like I mentioned, we'll be seeing him very, very soon. In terms of inbound, oh, my goodness, we have quite a bit to cover in that sense. So the first piece of business that we had here with players coming into the club, it was a trade with Cincinnati, FC Cincinnati, that involved $1 million in general allocation money from the Rapids to FC Cincinnati, and in exchange for that we got two center backs in Ian Murphy and Chidozie Awaziem, or Cheeto as he preferred.
Cheeto.
Yep, Cheeto. and so we got both of them in that trade with FC Cincinnati, again sending $1 million in general allocation money over to FC Cincinnati. To my fellow center back here, what did you make of that trade and bringing in those two guys, those two, I would say, big pieces for this club?
I think it's a signal of the Rapids wanting to bring in the profile of center back that you want out on a Chris Armas team. We're going to play with a lot of verticality on the front foot, and that lends itself to an open style at times. Now I think a lot of people thought when Chris Armas got here it was going to be, risk, go forward, we're just going to risk it all and throw everything in the kitchen sink at other teams, defensive units. But there's a lot more nuance to the way Chris Armas wants to play. And without getting into the weeds too much with that, with this question, Chidozie and Ian Murphy are going to bring athleticism, pace, strength, exactly what you want from center backs in Chris Armas's system, right? And they both have very good experience. Obviously, Ian's still a little bit younger, but he has over 100 MLS games under his belt already. And Cheeto played, a bunch of games in Europe, and he's one of those guys, man, when the lights come on, you can see what this guy can do. And they're both very, very good signings for the way, like I said, the Rapids want to play. They're good guys. They're good characters. They both had good positive preseasons. Now, it's still going to take a little bit of time to get used to, Cincinnati, which was a bit more of a possession / get the ball to Lucho Acosta every time you can system into what Chris Armas' system is. But positive signings, both of them.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And Cheeto, of course, was a Nigerian international. He has over 300 appearances in Europe with the few clubs that he'd spent some time with while in Europe before making his way to Cincinnati and eventually making his way here to the Rapids. And then Ian, he had 104 MLS appearances since being drafted in the MLS Super Draft back in 2022. So plenty of experience to come with the quality that we've brought in this offseason, and those two from FC Cincinnati. And then Super Drafts. My goodness, I felt like we chose half the
I think we're still drafting players.
So to cover that, we selected 9 players in the MLS Super Draft in this past offseason. And I think one guy I would like to note here is Alex Harris. Mm-hmm. So he was forward he was the 4th overall selection, coming from Cornell. He spent 2 seasons at Cornell, where he had 34 games played and scored 31 goals. The guy has an eye for goal.
He does.
And, of course, granted, yes, there is a bit of a gap and a transition period when you're going from the collegiate level to the professional level, right? But, Drew, what have you seen from Alex in particular? I know for me, I'll get to a little bit to what I saw, but I know you were there from the start in Querétaro with him.
A lot of good things from Alex. And when he first walks into the locker room, like, man, he's small. He's not a big guy, you know. He's smaller than me, and that really doesn't matter in soccer, you know. But a lot of times the prototypical, 9 attacking player, you know, they look different than they certainly did when I played, you know. But Alex Harris, man, he's smart, and he has an eye for goal. You get him on the ball in the 18-yard box, and he can put the ball in the back of the net. And I've been super impressed with his repeated high-speed runs, his ability to threaten the back line with his runs, right? He wants the ball played in behind. He wants to run onto the ball. So he'll make a run. Okay, the ball doesn't come his way, no problem. Back in the line. Makes another run, right? Ball doesn't come his way, no problem. Back in line. He's looking to make these repeated high-speed runs to stretch the opponents as much as possible. And you know who loves that? Chris Armas, yeah. Right? And this coaching staff, because it just opens teams up. And I think, you know, him making these runs, you know, yes, it's going to open up space for himself, but of course for the Djordje Mihailovic's underneath. Could you even see Rafa and Alex Harris playing together where it opens up space now for Rafa Navarro a little bit? I think so. So I've been very excited with what I've seen from Alex Harris so far.
Likewise, and just to follow that up, when I was at preseason, we were like ships in the night. Like you were in
You were there
for a bit. I was there. But in a different part of this of preseason in Querétaro. So, but at least when I was there, Drew, when I noticed him and started kind of keeping an eye on him and what he was doing, and it was just his finishing. Yeah. He just seemed to find a way to finish one goal after the other. There was one finishing draw I remember watching that is intense, to say the very least. It's very, very intense kind of towards the end of training. And he just seemed to finish every opportunity that he had. Just dribble away or just create enough space for himself to just find the bottom corner and finish. So he has an eye for goal, and he has a way of being able to just find the back of the net. He just has a way. So we'll see how Alex develops. Again, there is a bit of a transition that, you know, from the collegiate level to the professional level, especially as physical and as intense MLS can be. But I think with time and with a little patience, and then just providing him the platform to develop and have opportunities to make mistakes, but also like look for a goal as he tends to do, right? Mm-hmm. I think people we'll take note of Alex down the road eventually, and maybe see him score a few goals along the way in 2025. So with that, we'll move on to Bassett, but not Cole. Sam Bassett. So Mr. Sam Bassett, who was a homegrown signing that we made in January. Of course, Cole's younger brother is joining the fold now. 2 Bassets in the first team. And regarding Sam, he played at Denver University, so stayed very local. Had 77 total appearances for them, 24 goals, 26 assists at his time with DU. Drew, again, like I'm going to go back to you here. Like I wasn't able to keep a better eye on Sam, but just since I'm busy filming and doing a bunch of other things along the way. Mm-hmm. But what have you seen with Sam? And, you know, a lot of people want to draw a lot of comparisons with Cole, right? You know, with the 2 brothers together. But what have you seen from Sam and what he's been able to kind of offer in preseason, what he could offer down the road?
Sam's not an unknown, of course, not just because of his last name, but he also obviously spent some time here growing up. And even when he was at DU, he would come back in the summers and train with the second team at times. So he's somebody that we know extremely well. And there are some comparisons certainly to Cole Bassett. He can find the back of the net. He can get assists, right? He has a good eye for the field, can pick out a good pass. I wouldn't say he probably is as fast as Cole or maybe as dynamic. Who is though? Cole covers every inch of every pitch in MLS, right? But Sam can still cover a lot of ground, and he's extremely clean on the ball. He's a very good connector, side to side and front to back, you know, and he's always picking up good spaces, good spots where he's got a little bit of extra time to collect himself and make these passes. I think it's going to take, like with Alex Harris, a little bit of time because you come from the collegiate level. And suddenly the pace of the game's a lot quicker. You don't have near as much time. The opposition wants to kill you, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got Bassett on the back of your jersey, right? So you're already stepping into, a bit of a target because, Cole has proven in his time here in the league that he's a bit of a force. But I'm extremely excited. I think Sam has a very high ceiling. He's going to look a little bit different than Cole, but there is going to be some comparisons there. But just a good, clean, technical midfielder that, like I said, I think has a high ceiling, and he's had a very good preseason. Yeah,
that's exciting. And, of course, another homegrown that we can add into the fold with the first team. And a couple more signings that we want to cover here. The next one, second to last one, is Ted Cudi Pietro, forward that we got from DC United, using a new mechanism that we
straight cash, homie.
Straight cash, homie. Straight cash. And so that was a trade with DC United where the Rapids sent $1.125 million straight cash straight to DC United, and in exchange that we got Ted Kudi-Pietro. He's 23 years old, attacking midfielder, has played 65 games for DC United and MLS in general, 7 goals, 7 assists in his career, and he was currently recovering from a shoulder injury, or shoulder surgery rather. But this is the signing that excites me, because although it didn't happen most recently, and I think just it faltered a little bit, maybe just because of how things were going in DC at the moment. But there was a stretch, I believe in 2023, if I'm recalling correctly, where him and Christian Benteke, right? Very notable forward who has one hell of a presence in this league. Those two just seemed to be on the same wavelength with how they were playing, and were just playing off each other and couldn't be stopped to a certain extent. And to me, that shows that Ted, having that experience and having that know-how of playing with such a notable player like that, and create opportunities or score goals himself, or just create opportunities at the bare minimum, has me very excited of what he can do with this group that he has, with when you have a Georgie or a Hoffa or all these other pieces around him, to be able to do the same thing, and if not, probably be more productive.
And by no means am I saying Hoffa Navajo is Christian Benteke here, but he doesn't have to be for Ted to thrive and to make an impact, right? He just maybe needs that platform up front as a number 9 to play off of and to combine with. And of course, Georgie Mihailovic, you know, and while he's more of the go kind of find the game, he'll go find Ted, he'll go be able to combine with Ted. And I think, you know, just mentioning those three and, you know, as a group together in attack could look really good. Now we don't quite know what it looks like, because Ted is recovering from an injury similar to Darren Yappi's injury, right? But it shouldn't be too long on either one of those guys. But really excited to see what Ted brings, and you put him in that mix with some of those players we mentioned, and yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, no, I think he'll look once he gets settled in, gets used to the Colorado altitude. I think Ted can be a very, very important piece for this group, in any way, shape, or form that Chris Armas and the coaching staff decide to use him. So, and like I said, only had 2 more now, down to the very last one, which happened just this past weekend on February 15th on Saturday. Josh Atencio, midfielder Josh Atencio, that we got from the Seattle Sounders, and that was a transfer using general allocation money from the Rapids that they were sending over to the Sounders. In exchange, of course, getting Josh Atencio, 23-year-old defensive midfielder, homegrown, I believe, for the Seattle Sounders, and you know that typically they do produce very good homegrowns there. And I think that just looked like it was an opportunity for him to try to find playing time elsewhere, just considering the congestion and the competition that you see in a place like Seattle, right? That's a club that's just perennial, a perennial playoff team. So it's you know, I think there's no shame in saying that you couldn't get into a team like that, but that's where the Rapids can benefit from getting someone like that, like a Josh, who's going to be eager to play, eager to get minutes, eager to show him what he's really, really about, and be a fresh face, and just provide more competition and just help this team out in any way he can.
You bring in a younger player still with plenty of MLS experience at a high level with the Sounders, deep playoff runs, Champions Cup runs, U.S. Open Cup runs. They were converting him to center back, which is interesting. I'm assuming that's not really a position that he wants to play, but it provides competition. It again provides a good experience at a good age, and I think he'll step in and make an impact right away in the middle of the field, whether it's starting from the gun or showing what he can do in the first couple training sessions. He doesn't have a whole lot of time before the season actually starts to get himself going, but I don't think it's going to take him a lot of time.
No, especially kind of with some of the minutes and some of the experience he actually does have under his belt, having just been in MLS and a competitive environment that is Seattle. So I think that it'll be to his benefit and to our benefit. It'll be mutually beneficial in terms of having someone like that come into the club and be able to help us out straight away, or if not overtime. So that does it in terms of transactions. A lot. Again, we were very busy in this offseason going into 2025, but we covered it. We gave you guys the lay of the land in that sense. But now we're going to look ahead to 2025, and particularly some of the key players that are going to make a difference for this club. And I would say it's going to be a rehash of what 2024 was in terms of the guys who really stuck out, were the faces of the club, were leaders for this club, who had a presence and made their presence known, not just at the club, but in this league with the performances that they had. I want to start with Hoffa. So Hoffa Navajo, of course, our DP number 9. last year in 2024, scored 15 goals, had 5 assists in 34 games. We completed his permanent transfer from Palmeiras in June of 2024, since he was on loan starting in June 2023. Had him for a year until we decided to pick up the purchase option. And Rafa was top 5 in MLS in expected goals. For me, that just says he's getting in the right positions that he needs to. I think he would tell you that he could have scored more goals last year, to be honest with you, and I would believe that as well. But Rafa was tremendous last year. I would say not just with the goal scoring, but I think the goal scoring was definitely a big part of it.
It takes, we talk about it sometimes, it takes players that come over from Europe, from South America, sometimes a little bit of time to adjust to the league, to adjust to the system, to your teammates. And what we saw Rafa do last year was like finally he was himself, I feel like. And you saw it more and more as the season went on. And once you got into the summer and the Leagues Cup, it was like, this guy is a goal scorer. We know how hard he works. My goodness. He's one of those number 9s that you pray is on your team because of how hard he works. He's that platform up there. Defensively, his work rate is incredible. He sets the tone for this group defensively. And of course, you get him in the box, you get Djordje Mihailovic on the ball, you get some of these wingers on the ball, and he's gonna put the ball in the back of the net. And hopefully we'll see more of that in 2025. I think we will. I think he's more settled. I think he knows he's here permanently now. The guy always has a smile on his face. He's got an incredible laugh. And I'm expecting and really excited about the potential of how many goals he can score, and again with the players around him, I think it's going to be a good 2025 for Rafa. Just building off of what was a great 2024 for Rafa.
100%. And I know, just again, like I mentioned, like the goal scoring is a big part of it, right? Especially with your DP number 9, that's what you would hope to get out of him. But it's like you mentioned just a bit earlier, Drew. It's his work rate, and that's something I harped on a lot last year. Like for me, I would be hard pressed to find a harder working number 9 than Rafa in all of MLS.
For sure.
And the perfect example of that would be in Leagues Cup. This is where I think was the perfect example of what Rafa does in terms of whether he creates chances for himself or for others. Was against Juarez when Francisco Calvo, I believe, was on the ball basically on his own goal line trying to play out of the back. Didn't work out. Rafa finds a moment, pokes the ball away, puts the ball into the 6 for Johnny Lewis to score and finish that chance. And
ball thief. Chris Armas calls him the ball thief.
The ball thief, yeah. The ball. So for me, I think that's the most perfect way to kind of describe what Rafa is. Someone who is incredibly hardworking before anything, but then just has a knack for goal, being in the right positions at the very least, and of course finishing off. I mean, he had 15 goals, and I think, like I said, he would probably tell you he could have scored more. Mm-hmm. So that's very exciting to go. That's a very, very exciting basis to go off of from 2024 going into 2025 for Rafa, who, like you mentioned, I think is going to feel more settled now this time around. Moving on to our number 10, Djordje Mihailovic. I know you love talking about Djordje. I mean, what hell of a player. Hell of a player. I know you love talking about Djordje. Djordje last year had 11 goals, 14 assists in 29 matches. Featured for the U.S. men's national team at the Paris Olympics, which was a tremendous, tremendous opportunity, a tremendous achievement for Djordje. And I know that's something that stuck with him for sure. And was top 5 in MLS for expected assists. So with Rafa, he's top 5 in expected goals, and then you have our number 10, who's top 5 with the assists. I think basically for me that tells me that he puts a ball on a platter for you. It's just a matter of you just being able to go finish that chance, but can obviously score goals himself with 11 goals.
He can put the ball in the back of the net. He loves getting assists. I think he would prefer, to have even more assists than this. Of course, that's 14 assists. That's well, what more could you ask for? And he gets double-digit goals. Like what didn't he do last season? He did it all, And the fact that even in the playoffs, man, do you guys remember the ankle roll against Austin in the last regular season game? He still played in both legs against the Galaxy, essentially on one leg, And this guy's. He's a grinder, man. I think a lot of people, maybe that don't spend the time that I'm able to around Djordje Mihailovic on a daily basis, look at him as just a luxury player that, he's earned the right to be a luxury player, but that's not him, man. He's a grinder. Mm-hmm. He doesn't miss a training session. He doesn't even miss an exercise in training. He's so competitive. He pulls the best out of not only himself, but as long as he's doing that, he tries to pull the best out of his teammates around him as well. And I could talk all day about what he can do on the soccer field, but what impressed me about him last season was just the responsibility that he takes on to make sure. And he doesn't always do it the way that, you want. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. You can see him on the field sometimes. He's moaning at the ref at times. He's moaning at his teammates at times. He's moaning at himself at times. But he's motivating guys, and he's motivating himself. And his passing ability, his scoring ability, the positions he takes up. When you have a Cole Bassett running around you like that and a Rafa Navarro at the number 9, Djordje Mihailovic doesn't necessarily have to be the focal point, but he's more than capable of it. And when he gets on the ball, he can make just about anything happen. And I'm here I go again talking about Djordje Mihailovic, but I can't stop. He really is an impressive player.
He's one of the best players in the league.
He is. He is.
None. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, and he wasn't even able to kind of finish out the season between going to the Olympics in the summer and then missing out because of that injury that he had towards a little bit of the end of the season. So, there's they always like to say that there's the piano players and the piano carriers, if you will, with in terms of players, right, in terms of their tendencies and how they go about it. For me, I think Djordje's like both, as you were kind of saying. Like, he has the grind and the grit and the work ethic of the piano carrier, but then the quality that he oozes as a piano player. Like Djordje, I think just. How many more times are we going to say that he's just a quality player, one of the best players in the league, period. So, again, this is a good basis of Djordje that is going to want to go off of from 2024. I know he's definitely going to want to improve from that and go for more. So straight up, just as I know he's mentioned before, that he just wants to go for trophies and win more things, really, here at the Colorado Rapids. With that, we'll go to Cole Bassett, our homegrown number, kind of in the number 8 position, who is everybody knows and loves. Last year, Cole was on 9 goals and 7 assists in 30 games. The Rapids, they were winless in 4 regular season matches and 2 playoff matches after his injury. And I would go back to when we had Tom Bogert towards the end of last year on the podcast, where he had mentioned that sometimes you notice a player more when they're not available as opposed to when they are. And I would have to agree with that. I think we did notice a bit of a drop off with Cole not being in the lineup because of his injury that took him out for the rest of the season. But when he's on the pitch, man, my goodness, it's not just with the goals and the assists, but it's just like his overall play in general, Drew.
He's a complete player. He really is. And Cole demands so much from himself. Yeah. He really does. He's extremely hard on himself. I mean, the guy, almost gets to double-digit goals last year while missing some games. The amount of ground he covers, the energy is perfect for this Rapid side. I almost say he does too much running at times, but the way he's able to press from his midfield positions, put the other team on the clock, force them into mistakes, and then his ability on the ball, especially with some of the players around him. I know he wants to score a lot of goals. He wants to score more goals. I think he's got plenty of goals in him, which is always fun to see. But we did miss him at the end of the year last year, and you see the energy that you miss, the amount of running that he does that you miss. Cole, again, kind of like Djordje, doesn't, they can kind of switch off being the piano player at the time, because Cole also can do a bit of the heavy lifting. Those two together was really exciting in 2024. I think they know even more about each other now going into 2025 and their tendencies. I expect Cole to continue to fill the shoes of being a leader on this squad now that he's a little bit older. I think he finally does not qualify for 22 under 22 or whatever. He's finally passed that threshold after about a decade. But I expect his leadership qualities to continue to develop and grow. And with that always comes more responsibility, and that can only be a good thing when it's Cole Bassett.
Yeah, absolutely. So another one, I know he mentioned that he was I think you mentioned it, Drew, where he would have liked to get the double-digit goals. He was literally this close with being on 9 goals. And just his quality shows. I think it was Sasha Kljestan had a quote at some point last year saying that he's like kind of like Frank Lampard, where he finds that he'll make those late runs sometimes to, if it's not Rafa or Djordje that's scoring off a back pass or like scoring off dribbling themselves, then Cole will be there to kind of finish that chance himself. And just the quality overall that he has on the ball and then the ground that he covers. So I think that's not a bad comparison to have to someone like Frank Lampard. And again, for Sasha Kljestan, someone like that, to be able to kind of make that observation shows that Cole had a presence in this league. Yeah, I think that last year was a very good breakout year for him, and he's going to hope to build off of that as well, along with Rafa, along with Djordje. The last guy I wanted to cover.
Portero.
the big man in the back, Zach Steffen. What a signing he was. What a signing he was for this Colorado Rapids side, because he made himself known in this league and with this club. The presence that he has, Drew, is tremendous, not just with his play, but just because of his experience and what he can provide to the younger guys or just the rest of his teammates in the locker room as well. He was the Leagues Cup goalkeeper of the tournament, rightly so, with the performances he was putting in throughout that tournament. Finally back in the U.S. men's national team picture, as he should have been, with the performances he was putting in time after time after time after time with us last year. And he kind of has that sweeper keeper role just because of naturally how this style of play that we have under Chris Armas, that he provides a little cover for the back line when needed. And some stats to kind of support that a little bit. So he had 75 defensive actions outside the 18-yard box. He had 2.27 such actions per 90. And both of those numbers are highest in MLS. So that shows you that it's one thing to just kind of plug someone in there and say, we need you to do this, but you have to be able to go do it as well, right? And Zach, I think, did an incredible job of doing so outside of just the saves, but just being able to provide cover and be the quarterback, if you will, for not just the back line, but literally I think just the rest of the 10 out there on the pitch with him.
Zach does such a good job of understanding how the Rapids want to play, right? He understands the tempo. A lot of times you see a goal kick, right? Ball go out of bounds. He doesn't just walk over the ball, set, wait. No, sometimes he's getting the ball and he's playing, right? And this is a big piece of the Rapids attack, right? Mm-hmm. Be vertical, be high tempo, put the other team on the back foot, you know? And so some of those stats back it up. But I feel bad sometimes when I talk about Zach, because as good as he is on the field, he's just as good off the field. And so you start talking about how great he is off the field. It's like, well, what about on the field? Yeah. You start talking about how great he is on the field. What about off the field? There's nothing this guy didn't do last season as a goalkeeper on the field and a leader on the field that he didn't emulate off the field as well. And just his maturity, his experience, his positivity was an unbelievable signing, and it shows off. It pays dividends for him personally because it gets him back involved with the national team, and of course for the Rapids because you have a goalkeeper who's bought into everything that this club is about, and he's still in his prime, so to speak. Of course, the prime for a goalkeeper is typically longer than a field player, but regardless, love having that guy between the sticks.
Yeah. Quite an impressive list of players that we're able to kind of cover there. And again, like I said, these were the guys who definitely provided a strong basis for this Rapid side to be able to have the success that they did in 2024. It's going to be the same group, I think. And if not, maybe we add one or two more guys in there that are going to have an impact in 2025 to help this Rapid side propel even further, have more success than they did in 2024, which is a very exciting prospect.
Which is important to keep that core group together, right? And then you add pieces around them. But anytime you're able to keep a successful core group together, it typically translates really well to the seasons to follow. So that's big on the Rapids to keep that group.
Tremendously. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Drew. That does it for the players in terms of some of the big players, like the more notable players on this Rapid side that we wanted to cover going into this 2025 season. Let's go into a little bit of MLS Roundup, just covering a few more things. This will be a little bit new in the rundown, that we're going to cover a few things kind of happening in and around the league, just to provide you guys the gauge of what's going on around the league itself and not just here at home with the Colorado Rapids. So to start, the Seattle Sounders, they were fairly busy themselves with a couple, I would say, pretty important pickups on their end, getting forward Jesus Ferreira and also forward Paul Arriola from FC Dallas. Two, I think, notable pieces that are going to help them out tremendously with Jesus Ferreira, who's shown his quality in Dallas, right? You know, the Dallas had shown their love and confidence in him when they gave a homegrown a DP contract. That's not something I think we've ever seen, if at all, in the history of the league. So that showed, I think, what Dallas thought of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And then Seattle kind of replicating that in terms of wanting to go out of their way to get someone like that, a quality player like that. And then a teammate of his, and getting Paul Arriola. This is somebody that I saw when he first came into MLS with DC United, the quality that he'd shown, the ground that he can cover. And, you know, U.S. men's national team player as well, and definitely in his prime. If not, we're trying to work his way back into that fold. Two, I think, pretty good pickups, I would say, for the Seattle Sounders that we've mentioned. Again, a team is a perennial playoff team that is always fighting for championships every year.
Yeah, and a team that obviously we know well in the Western Conference. And so they put their trust into two experienced players, two experienced attacking players. So it'll be interesting to see how they do there. And of course, this is the time of year where you see new faces and new places. Speaking of Dallas, Lucho Acosta. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Former league MVP, goes from Cincinnati to Dallas. And I feel like we've seen Acosta a couple of times the last couple of seasons, because even though he's been in the Eastern Conference with Cincinnati, we'll see him at our home opener now.
Yep.
And that was with the new transfer rule, right? The straight
cash money. It's trademark straight cash money rule.
Straight cash homie.
Straight cash homie.
And Evander goes from Portland then to Cincinnati, and so these are two all-stars, MLS best 11 quality players that are in new places, and so it's always interesting to see what the transfer window is going to bring, and this new mechanism now allows these players to go for cash without the GAM and the TAM and the some of the other mechanisms. Yeah, and I think it's good because the Rapids got involved in that as well.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. We certainly did. Like we mentioned with Ted, that was the straight cash homie rule.
Yeah.
I think we're just gonna roll with that at this point, thanks to Drew now. But
I wasn't the original creator, but
we'll trademark it in terms of what the mechanism is officially called in this league. But yeah, I mean, we were one of the first ones as well to make use of that new cash mechanism. To get Ted, which again, like I said, I think is going to be a very exciting player for the Rapids. I think a new fan favorite and able to contribute with tremendously with goals, assists, and other forms to this Rapids side. But with this new rule, Drew, I was curious to get your thoughts on what you made of it again, because we have these mechanisms in GAM and TAM, and I know it can be a little confusing for folks sometimes to try to keep track of and who has what, how you use it, the stipulations behind it. But with this, the just using straight up cash for transfers that we've seen put to good use already by a lot of teams. What have you made of this new rule so far?
It's a bit simpler, and I don't know all the rules and regulations either, and I thankfully, because if I was in charge of that stuff, I'm not sure who would be who would be in that locker room. But I don't know. I feel like it simplifies things. It keeps DP caliber players like Evander, like Lucho Acosta in the league. I feel like. Because it's just cash, it's not these other mechanisms where I think at times we've maybe lost some DP caliber players when their time at their current team is kind of up. Perhaps it's more it's easier to send them back overseas or to South America or to Europe, whatever it is. But I think this just simplifies it a little bit, and perhaps we'll keep the quality here in the league, which is a positive thing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, I think just maybe there's the simplicity to it, because sometimes I'll sit there I feel like the one dude at the board who's like trying to connect everything in terms of making things happen, when it comes to GAM and TAM. And I think maybe that was just something that would help the league kind of manage the things that they needed to in terms of transfers between teams with players and resources. But I think just seeing this mechanism, I'm with you, Drew. I think just maybe there's a certain simplicity to it that helps to just say, take the cash, we'll take the player, let it be that, and just kind of roll with that. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see. We already saw it put to good use in this offseason. We're going to see how it's going to kind of progress literally in the years to come, in terms of how other teams are going to use that mechanism down the road. And now looking to the Galaxy, and we're still keeping it with MLS. Looking at the Galaxy, this is a team that obviously won MLS Cup in 2024 that the Rapids fell to at the start of their playoff run last season. But they had shown their quality with the players that they had. Ricky Push at the head of all of that, right? He is the brain of the team, and it doesn't hurt when you have guys like Joseph Pansel, Gabriel Peck, Dan Joveljic in front of you and around you to help you out and be as productive as you are and help them kind of produce the numbers and the goals and the assists that they were providing, right? But the Galaxy did have to make some moves. I think looks like it might have been a little bit of like the cap flexibility on their end. To start, Dan Joveljic, he was sold to Sporting Kansas City, which I think for me that is a very good signing for Sporting Kansas City, a proven goal scorer who literally just come off winning MLS Cup, knows what this league is about, and I think fills a gap, one gap that I think as the Sporting Kansas City had in their roster with some of the struggles that they've had in the past couple of seasons or so.
Yeah, he's somebody that can put the ball in the back of the net. He proved that this last season with the Galaxy. I think his start with the Galaxy was a little bit slow, and he was kind of buried behind Chicharito for the first little bit, but a good signing for Sporting. Somebody that, as you said, he comes from Europe where it's different over there certainly, and he comes into the league now, to Sporting with experience within the league, a proven winner, a proven champion, and a proven goal scorer. And so a smart signing from Sporting Kansas City there.
I agree. And yet another signing using the new transfer rule, just straight cash money.
Yeah.
Straight cash money, man. And so with the Galaxy kind of needed to provide that space, they also brought in Christian Ramirez. So someone who's from California, getting to kind of bring someone home really to a sense from the Columbus Crew. And Christian Ramirez, while he wasn't Cucho, while he wasn't maybe one of the Diego Rossi or some of these big notable names that Columbus had, I think, but still was very important, I think, to that Columbus side in terms of what they did as a group. And that's just somebody who I think just helps the Galaxy provide like a different dimension, a different face to them when they need it. But I think Christian Ramirez, he's been in this league for many years now, has shown the quality and what he can offer to this side.
He has, and you saw what he's capable of with Cucho and Diego Rossi. I think you'll see him continue to show what he can do with Puig and Peck and Paintsil around him. So again, you lose one number 9 proven goal scorer from the Galaxy, you replace him with somebody who's also proven that he can put the ball in the back of the net as well. So I'd expect the Galaxy to look like the Galaxy again once Puig gets healthy. I think Paintsil's out for a bit of time. Once he gets healthy as well, there'll be another team to be reckoned with here in 2025.
Yeah, for sure. But I think the big thing is going to be that just getting those bodies back, particularly in Puig and Paintsil. But other than that, I think the Galaxy are just going to look to repeat, but obviously with the target on their back being the MLS Cup champs, again, regardless of who they play against in this league. And then finally, of course, just to wrap it up on the MLS roundup is with San Diego finally coming into the picture. Of course, they signed Chucky Lozano, who's a big name in Mexico. I think that's going to be a name that a lot of people will recognize in this league, with being in a bilingual league and with a lot of Mexican-American presence here in this country and in this league as well. And then it's just... We don't know, I think, what to expect from San Diego. They've made some signings from with some players with MLS experience, a few others that come from Europe as well, or different parts of the world. They have Luca De La Torre, who's in the national team picture. I think a good signing for them is he's a San Diego native, so someone that they can kind of bring back home. We'll see where that goes, because it's just, you never know with an expansion club, right? I would say there's the rare exception of an LAFC or an Atlanta United where you hit the ground running, but more often than not, it can be difficult to get started as an expansion club in MLS.
You never know what it's going to look like. I know it does immediately move up to the top of the power ranking lists in terms of away trips that you want to be a part of. But in all seriousness, I think this day and age when expansion teams come in, a little bit more than you probably did 10, 15 years ago, because you have to be able to compete, pretty solidly from the start. And I think San Diego will. They've made some signings to show that. But you never know exactly what it's going to look like.
Yeah. Again, it's historically it is a struggle for expansion teams to come in and try to make the playoffs. Just at least for using that as a barometer, if you will. But they have made some signings. They have made some signings that kind of give you hope and think maybe this can come together. And if they can at least make the playoffs, I think that would be a good first year for them in MLS. But we'll see. We'll wait and see. Of course, we have 2 matchups against them, with them being in the Western Conference, one being here at Sporting Goods Park, and then the other over in San Diego. We will get to those matches once they come around. And I'll be vying for that San Diego trip, by the way. I think everybody will. Never hurts to have sun at any point in the year. So that does it for MLS Roundup. And finally, Drew, I wanted to get to this last segment that we had for our fans is just some predictions. What are some things maybe that we're looking forward to, things that could maybe happen in this 2025 season for the Rapids, or even in MLS in general? Is there a player for you that sticks out and you're like, maybe this guy can do something more or do something that we haven't seen before for the Rapids?
Like a breakout player? Yes. I'm going to go with Wayne Frederick.
Okay.
Wayne,
I like that.
We drafted with our first pick back in the 2023 MLS draft, which was for the 2024 season. And he had a solid rookie season, didn't get the minutes that he would have liked, but developed really well in matches with R2 last season. And I think he's had a really, really good preseason. And Wayne's a smart player. He's athletic. He's dynamic. he is a guy that I could see, and what signals a breakout for Wayne. I think hitting maybe a certain minutes threshold in matches with the first team. Can he get his first goal this year or first assist this year with the first team? But just being more of a regular, knowing that he's ready to step out onto the game pitch, whether it's as a starter or coming on off the bench. He can play a 6, he can play an 8, and so I think Wayne Frederick is primed to take a big step up here in his second season with the Rapids.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I mean, just the moments that I would see him playing with Rapids 2 last year, you could see there's a little bit of run. Again, when there's that transition from playing in college to playing the professional level, even with Rapids 2, there is a transition period there. But there was just so many moments I would see from him. It's like, man, once he's like a little more refined or gets more experience, Wayne could be definitely somebody to keep an eye out for in terms of being more involved in the first team, even if it's off the bench or you never know. So he could be starting if things play out in such a way, right?
It's a crowded midfield too.
Yeah,
and so it's not. It wasn't easy for him last year. It won't be easy for him this year. No. But I like the strides I've seen from him.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see where Wayne goes with his progress, and who knows? It'd be nice to see Wayne kind of get into the fold a little bit more. For me, I think in terms of a breakout player, again, it's early. He's just come into the professional level of the game and joined us through the Super Draft in Alex Harris. I think I was, with what I was able to watch from him when I was in Mexico in preseason with the group. Again, you mentioned you look at him and his physique maybe doesn't scream like a typical number 9 that you see, but you watch him move, you watch him play. It's very fun and incredible to watch. So just I think Alex Harris maybe again I'm not saying that he's going to be starting every game and scoring 15 goals and have 10 assists off the jump, but he's someone that I think really could
maybe a couple goals.
Yeah, why not?
Maybe a couple assists.
Yeah, but sometimes once you get that first one, I think that kind of provides the platform for you to go out and express yourself and feel a little bit more free, less pressure. So I think Alex could be someone that could really help this group bit by bit. Again, he's going to need to grow and develop, but I think he really can help this group bit by bit in important moments throughout the 2025 season. So there's a couple things I was hoping to get for, but I ramble on too much sometimes, Drew, so I got to put a wrap on it. But
that's what we're here for, right?
But I would like to think that hopefully we gave you guys, the Rapids fans, a good gamut, a good primer going into the 2025 season, because, again, it is going to be a very, very long but very exciting season for the Colorado Rapids. So, again, the rundown is something we're going to be doing weekly. However, in this instance, we will not have a show next week. Just because of travel and the chaos of being in LAFC, but the time that we would typically record will be in LA, ahead of the second leg of the CONCACAF Champions Cup in LA against LAFC. So not next week, but the week after our home opener against FC Dallas, we will have a new podcast in the run for you. And like I mentioned, we have the 2025 MLS season starting up. So we have St. Louis City SC. That's going to be on MLS Season Pass this Saturday. And you can catch that match at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Like I said, MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. And then, just to kind of get you guys up to speed, FC Dallas, the home opener, is the next Saturday here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. Of course, it's the home opener. You don't want to miss it. You can watch an MLS Season Pass. We'd rather have you folks out here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park with us to support your Burgundy boys ahead of what's going to be a very busy and fun 2025 season. That's going to do it, Drew. That's going to do it for the first podcast of 2025.
What a way to start.
Doing so in good company. Thanks to the production team behind the camera. Thanks to you, Drew, of course. We will see you guys in 2 weeks for our next show. But thanks to Dick's Sporting Goods for being a part of this show and providing this podcast to you guys. We will see you in the next one.